Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel, Mzansi Daily Update. I hope you're all doing well. Today, we are diving into one of the most contentious and widely debated topics in South African politics, land reform. And more specifically, we're going to talk about Julius Malema, leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, and his recent bold statements regarding land expropriation without compensation. This issue has been at the heart of political discourse for decades, with the question of land ownership in South Africa remaining unresolved since the end of apartheid. We all know that land ownership has been a major source of economic and social inequality, and the topic of land redistribution continues to fuel tensions across the nation. In his latest remarks, Julius Malema made it clear that the EFF is unwavering in their commitment to land reform, reaffirming their stance on expropriating land without compensation. Malema's message: if the EFF comes to power, they will seize commercial farms from white landowners and redistribute them to farm workers. This is a continuation of the EFF's long-held position on land expropriation, and it has once again ignited debate about how best to address South Africa's history of land dispossession and economic inequality. So, let's break this down a bit and look at what's really at stake here. First, Malema's statement highlights the deeply entrenched inequality in South Africa's agricultural sector. Historically, land was taken from black South Africans and given to white settlers during colonialism and apartheid. The effects of this dispossession are still felt today, as the vast majority of South Africa's agricultural land remains in the hands of a few white landowners. Despite years of democratic rule, the redistribution of land has been slow, and many farm workers remain without ownership or security. Malema's call for land expropriation without compensation is seen by many as a necessary step to correct this historical wrong. The EFF argues that this policy would address the racial and economic inequalities that persist in South Africa's rural areas, and it would empower those who have long been denied ownership of land they've worked for generations. In Malema's words, we will not compromise on the land issue. Our people must benefit from the land, and it's time to end the monopoly held by a few individuals who continue to profit from stolen land. But as you can imagine, not everyone agrees with this approach. Critics of land expropriation without compensation argue that it could have severe consequences for South Africa's agricultural sector. They warn that seizing farms from white landowners without compensation could lead to economic instability, reduce food production, and result in job losses, particularly for farm workers who depend on the agricultural industry for their livelihoods. These concerns are not unfounded. They are examples from other countries where similar policies have had negative economic impacts. However, Malema and the EFF are firm in their belief that the economic risks are worth it to right the wrongs of the past. They argue that the current system is inherently unjust and cannot continue if South Africa is to move forward as a truly equal and democratic nation. In Malema's view, the land should not remain in the hands of a small group of wealthy landowners while millions of black South Africans remain landless and marginalized. The EFF has also promised that, if in power, they will prioritize land redistribution to farm workers and ensure that the land goes to those who have been excluded from ownership for far too long. Now, the question many of us are asking is, will this radical approach work? Can land expropriation without compensation lead to the kind of transformation South Africa needs, or will it further destabilize an already struggling economy? Supporters of the EFF stance argue that this is a necessary step to bring about genuine economic equality and social justice. They say that the land is a fundamental resource that should be owned and controlled by those who work it, not by a small elite that has benefited from centuries of exploitation. On the other hand, opponents of the policy warn that the consequences could be catastrophic. They point to concerns over food security, as the loss of commercial farms could reduce the country's ability to produce food for its own population and for export. There are also concerns about the potential for violence and social unrest if large-scale land seizures were to occur, especially in a country already grappling with high levels of inequality and unemployment. This debate isn't just confined to the agricultural sector. It's deeply intertwined with South Africa's broader political and economic landscape. As we approach the 2025 elections, land reform is likely to remain a hot-button issue. For the EFF, this is a key plank of their platform, and they are determined to push forward with their agenda, even in the face of strong opposition. But it's not just about the land. The issue of land ownership is also a symbol of the racial and economic disparities that persist in South Africa. For many South Africans, land is not just a commodity, it's a symbol of justice, dignity, and economic empowerment. And so, land expropriation without compensation has become a rallying cry for those who feel that the promises of democracy have not been fulfilled for the majority of the population. Now, let's take a moment to talk about the broader implications of land reform for South Africa's foreign relations. While the primary focus of this debate is domestic, the issue of land expropriation without compensation could also have international consequences. Foreign investors and trading partners may have concerns about the security of property rights in South Africa, especially if the government moves forward with such a radical policy. This could impact South Africa's international reputation and potentially affect trade agreements and foreign investment in the country. We've already seen some concerns raised by international stakeholders, particularly in the agricultural and real estate sectors, who worry about the stability of South Africa's land tenure system. As we move forward into the election season, it's clear that the land reform issue will continue to be a defining feature of the political landscape. While some South Africans are calling for more radical measures like those proposed by Malema, others are looking for more gradual reforms that don't involve such drastic action. The challenge will be finding a way to balance the need to right the wrongs of the past with the need for sustainable economic growth and stability. And what do you think about all of this? Should South Africa push forward with land expropriation without compensation, or is there a better way to address the land issue? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update on South African political news. We'll continue to cover the big issues, and as always, we're here to break it down for you in a way that's easy to understand. See you next time.